Hi, I'm Stephen Goldsmith, and welcome to HOMOtivation, the podcast for busy, successful gay men who refuse to put their bodies last. On this show, I sit down with high-performing gay men, professionals, creatives, and artists who are building careers, navigating life, and still make fitness a priority, but not for perfection or approval, for longevity, confidence, and self-respect. On today's show, I am excited to introduce one of my good friends from college. We won't say when. This is Gamal Palmer. Yesterday. Hi, Gamal. A year ago? We graduated last year.
It was like I think it was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, 2 years ago is good. We can go with 2 years ago.
2 years works.
We won't say when we were born, or what year we graduated, or what year we went to Israel together on the birthright trip.
Very first one.
But that is a different conversation for another time, or maybe later. But while you're here and we haven't started yet, can you explain to everyone exactly what it is you do and a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for creating this platform. It's so needed. We need to have healthy conversations about who we are as men, as gay men, and also allies, and to really help us reimagine who we're going to be for each other, particularly in this time that we're living in with so much adversity and rapid change and a lot of noise. And so I'm just really, really excited and grateful that you've created this platform for there to be more healthy conversations and to think about fitness and wellness, and not just from a standpoint of, yeah, you work out, you go to the gym, but also like your emotional wellness, your mental wellness, right? Your wellness in your relationships. So I just wanted to give you some flowers and some congrats on that first.
Thank you. I mean, it is amazing to be able to do this and to be able to be in a time period where we can do this, where we can create our own content, where we can put stuff out there, where it takes away the barriers of having to go through others to be put in a public space. So I love that we can do this. And sometimes, listen, it can be overwhelming, content, filming stuff, all of that. But we can use it for good just as much as it can be used for not so good, as we're seeing in our current political climate and state of the world.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the things that I do. So I have a company called Conscious Builders, and we work with leaders around the world, largely executives and their teams. And then it sort of trickles down from there. In multiple sectors, right? So governments, tech companies, a lot in the production world and entertainment world, large scale nonprofits. And what we do is, I mean, in the short answer is that we really help leaders lead not from a place of adrenaline, right? And to start leading from a place of capacity. So we did a big survey, and what we found, we surveyed hundreds of executives around the country. And what we found was the number one challenge that people are having right now is burnout. They're exhausted. And we are having to operate at a cylinder rate that is just simply not human, just to do your daily functions, right? So ever since COVID and, hybrid workplaces and all of the things that came during that time period and the changes that have happened, and workplaces changing, AI integration, people are stressed, and they're trying to keep up. They're trying to strategize. They're trying to innovate, but we don't operate in the same ways in our workplace anymore. We don't relate to the workplace the same way. And we also don't relate to leadership the same way. So what we do is we really help leaders recalibrate. We help leaders reimagine and to retool how they deal with crisis, how they deal with communication amongst their teams, how they deal with conflict, and also how they innovate, which means how they need to step back and to develop an internal self-awareness so that way they can actually take the time to think newly, which is largely what a lot of people want anyway, but they don't have the simple tools to do it.
Yeah. Well, I would say, piggybacking off of that, the way things have changed, social media, back to that, email, text, everything is like within a second. You have to answer your emails. You have to answer your text. You see the little red dot on your phone. You're like, I have to check that. It used to be that you would go to work, and when you were done with work, you would go home and you leave your work at work. Now it's work 24/7. And if you don't respond to emails in certain positions, that's not acceptable. So basically, you're not just working your 8-hour days and 40 hours a week. You're working all day since you wake up. You get up, you get on your phone, you start scrolling through your phone, which is the worst thing to do. I do it.
Do it.
Do it. And I tell clients not to do that because it's not great to start your day off like
Horrible.
that. And yet we all fall into that trap somehow. But it is exhausting. And to keep all the plates spinning and to make sure, I mean, I think I forget what the study was, but they were in a country that was considered a third world country where they didn't have access to the internet and whatnot, and they had to fend for themselves and find food. And even though they had all of these stressors, they were way less stressed than we are with everything that we have.
Absolutely. Because it's like a ticker button. It's like this little electronic button. I mean, I have it. I think, in fact, like I missed one of your texts because I was doing what I call sleep texting, which is I'm actually asleep, but I'm also texting because it's 3 a.m. and I woke up and I'm like, and then I forgot that I responded or that I looked at a text. And so then it just sort of like sits there, right? But yeah, our brains have been trained to be on in a way that's actually literally not human. And it is responding to the machines and to the devices and to all the technology that's around us. And so we're programmed people. I mean, we're creatures of mirror. So we mirror each other. And then we also get programmed to operate in our society or like in our environments, right? And so we're now programmed to be on, and we know, our brain knows that there's at least one little email sitting in there. Our curiosity is like, I wonder what it is. I wonder what it says. And the thing is, you can wonder, but you don't have to actually take the action to check. Because a big part of what we do is we help people to shift small habits.
Like set boundaries, basically.
Set boundaries. And also, it's like sometimes people think when you bring in a consultant team or a coach or some sort of, crisis management workers, that there has to be a massive overhaul and that there needs to be like a huge strategy and like scratch everything. It's like, no, we work on what we call 2mm shifts, which is actually something that I grabbed from Tony Robbins years ago when I was doing a lot of his work. And it's really this idea that if you're flying a plane and you want to go to Japan, and if you're 2mm off, you could end up in Brazil or South Africa or wherever, right? Just from that 2mm, right? And so what we do is we help work with clients to think about what are the simple shifts that you could make that would have a massive impact. And one of those is, Gamal, don't check your phone in the middle of the night when you're trying to get back to Stephen, right? So...
Or watching TV and looking at your phone and checking TikTok and looking at the ticker at the bottom if you're watching the news and seeing all of those extra. It's just,
I feel like you're yelling at me.
Listen, I'm yelling at myself.
Stop scolding me.
We're bombarded all the time with so much shit and noise that it is exhausting. And it is also one of those setting boundaries. Like I could see an email and be like, well, I should answer this. And there are times, and even though I know I shouldn't be looking at the email at that time, but if it's after a certain time, I've had to fight with myself not to just respond, even if it's a quick response.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I just respond at that time, even if it's a quick response, that sends a message to the person who's messaging me that I'm available all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
It's not. One thing that I mean, again, we're talking about some of the smaller little things that, and also people know this. So like a lot of what we're talking about, people know this. It's just a matter of, do you do it? Right.
Right.
And we're joking around. I actually have been actively practicing not texting at night. One thing that I'm doing also is just timing everything. You can time your texts now, at least on iPhone you can. I'm not sure if you can on Androids or not, but on iPhones you can. Timing emails. Like I used to be known for sending emails and texting people at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever, because I'm traveling. I travel so much. I'm always on the road. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, well, they know I'm traveling. So I'll use that as an excuse. But it's really just because I'm thinking about it right now. And so I want to get it out. But the thing is, even though I'm still technically working at some crazy hours, I'm not teaching people that I want to be communicated with or that I want to communicate to you at wild hours by timing your emails, timing your text, right? And then just like also don't do it.
Well, but I mean, it's hard because if you're doing that and if you're a business owner and you need to have a presence on social media and do all of that, you are then going back to the filming of the content and doing that as well as doing everything else. And then it's this like day-to-day grind where you're like, oh my God, I've got to keep up.
Right.
And if you are someone who is trying to build your brand or your brand is big, like if you're doing stories every day and you're putting up content, you are literally producing, writing, acting in your own reality show every single day. And you are taking on all of those positions that a reality show on TV would be handled by a department. And now we are in charge of that.
Yeah.
And I think that especially as a leader, moving more to the point of what you do, like, yes, could anyone take what you're saying, not just leaders specifically? Yes. But like leaders especially, you feel like you always have to be on.
Right.
You feel like you have to be, you're the person that everyone needs to speak to and get approval from and get permission, and things can't go unless you say yes.
Right.
And then you take on the pressure of, like, I'm a small business owner, right? I have all my clients. We have assistant coaches. I have an assistant. I have someone who's doing all of my marketing and media. It's taken a long time to build that out. But I also then, not am I only managing everyone, I'm then taking on the business has to succeed, because if it doesn't, I'm going to fail everybody.
Right.
And so then there's that added pressure. So there's all of those added pressures. And then what's the economy doing, especially right now with what's going on? Are people scared to spend money? Are people scared to travel? Are people scared to spend money on luxury things like, coaching with me and my team or with you? It is a luxury, even though you can write it off, right? That is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. You named a bunch of different things. One, I just want to say is that coaches, wellness, consultant, outsourcing, and I'm not saying this because I am a consultant. I'm saying this from years of watching companies waste a lot of money. So choosing to have a coach, choosing a wellness path, choosing to bring an outside expert to help deal with some of the tension points that you're dealing with within your company saves you a ton of money, even the really expensive ones, because in the long term and sometimes the short term, because there's data out there. I may not get the statistic completely right, but people are 4.5 times more likely to leave a role when they are experiencing burnout, and they're often experiencing burnout because their leaders are experiencing burnout. And so I'm just getting over a little flu, so I feel like Kermit the Frog just like popped up in here real quick.
But listen how sexy your voice sounds right now.
Yes, Kermit the Frog's cousin, who's the super sexy cousin. But anyways, so I know, and it is tense to think about, okay, like when you're looking at your budget sheet, should I prioritize spending money on a wellness coach? Yes, because we need you to be well so that way you can wake up every day and feel good and feel like you have a clear mind and that you can deal with all that stuff that's going to be there anyways, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that. And also, it's really expensive to hire new people because you gotta take the time to find somebody. You got to take the time to onboard them and train them, and they've got to catch up, right? You're losing so much time and money. So you really want to make sure that you are at your best, whatever that means, and that you're taking care of yourself. So that was my point around that. Yeah, being a leader is really hard, particularly now. Cancel culture is it's not even separate from culture.
That's the thing. Yeah, you also have to be, and there's a lot of good in that whole realm, right? Like there is cancel culture, and you do have to be extra careful about the way you say things and the way that you speak, especially in a corporate environment and when there's people services and HR and all of that. There is a lot of good in there, but that is also very stressful to manage in the way that you are speaking to people and what you're saying. So then there's this other layer of, okay, now I have to, which is good. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's that extra layer of, okay, can I say it like this? How is this person receiving this? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Is this offensive? And take people's experiences and emotions into it. So then there's all of this other complexity.
Yeah.
That is on top of it.
Because awareness is work. right?
Awareness is work.
So in our model, it's called the Relaxed Leadership Playbook. And am taking the risk of knowing that a lot of people, when they hear that, they're gonna be like, oh gosh, like, I don't want to be like kumbaya. And, like, it's all about like, just sitting and breathing, and which it involves that, but it actually is probably one of the hardest things that people will do, because it
Yeah.
requires you to develop such a deep self-awareness and an awareness also of others, right? Of your environment. And so what smart leaders know is that for them to be relevant, they have to grow. And every smart leader that I work with grapples with, but pushes through it, deepening their understanding of self,
Uh-huh.
which includes how they talk to their team, maybe jokes that they make or things that they say that were funny 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but it ain't funny no more. Right. And it may be funny with you and your close friends, right? Like,
Sure.
there are things that I say with my close friends that I would never, say publicly, but that's because they know me and because we have that relational trust, right? But we live in a time right now where it's a part of your job to be aware, which
Yep.
is also a part of that anxiety that drives people to be what we call leading from reactivity, right? And so one of the things that I work with leaders to do is to move from being a reactive leader to a proactive leader, right? And in doing that, you're able to mitigate not all, but a lot of the mishigash, a lot of the stuff, right? And mess that intergenerational teams bring.
What you're saying is we're not okay, is what I'm getting from all of that. But also, it's interesting to talk about all of this because we know that this is all swirling around. But when you start to get into it and start listing all of the pressures and all of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, you're like, oh yeah, that's really hard for everyone. And so when there is this like toxic masculinity as well within, a very patriarchal, very like white male setup and structure. You don't need to feel emotions. Emotions are crazy. You don't need therapy. You don't need medication. But we've created this world that is so stressful. And then we're told that we're not allowed to take medication to help deal with it.
Right.
Or that we shouldn't talk about our emotions because that makes us weak, when it's the complete opposite.
It's a total opposite. So I've worked with, I'm just thinking about even a leader. He's one of the most influential leaders in Hollywood right now. And I helped him mediate a really messy situation. And luckily, we were able to get it resolved, and the production moved forward, and, it was smooth. And he really wanted to share about this with his team, but he didn't know how. And I was like, well, just talk about it. Just share what you learned. Share the mistake that you made, right? And how you learned that was a mistake, and share, what you plan on doing about it for the future and how you're going to mitigate those kinds of challenges in the future. And so I just had a conversation with him in front of his whole team, and the people walked into the room. So before we had the conversation, they walked into the room. Everybody was like really quiet, like kind of like shoulders up. We're in our all staff meeting, and it's like they use like this big agency for their all staff meeting spaces, which is also just adds another layer of like, veneer, right? So people walked in, and at the end of that conversation, I looked out at his team, and they were like,
just like relax.
Humanity was in the room.
Humanity instead of like all buttoned up.
Right. All buttoned up and tense and tension. And so, and that's something that we worked with, with them over the course of a couple of years. Actually, I observed a bunch of their different team meetings and worked with the senior team and everything. And each leader carries tension differently, right?
Yeah.
Some leaders or people, each person, we all carry tension differently, right? Some of us, like when you and I met back in college a few years ago, in collage class. No, but when we met in college in musical theater school, and I was acting then, I had a thing where like I like puffed my chest out like this with almost, it didn't matter what the character was. It was just like, I was like, yeah, and I'm here, and right. But that was just my tension.
Yeah.
It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't that I actually thought that that's what the character should be doing. But I hadn't built that self-awareness to understand that that's where I put my tension.
Well, that almost sounds like a little bit of, or a lot of bit of being a gay man and trying to present in a certain way.
Correct.
Which brings me to another question. Well, I have so many questions, and I know we don't have time for all of them.
We got time.
Nothing but time. Do you notice, and how does it show up differently for a gay man who is a leader? Like, obviously I know it's going to be different for everyone, but do you notice kind of a through line?
I don't know if I notice a through line. I think things have changed so much in actually in a good way. I think the need to perform masculinity to prove that you're not gay has changed a bit. I do think that there are still many performances that happen. So I'm not diminishing that by any means, but I don't think it's as clear cut as it used to be, right?
Yeah,
I think it's a lot more nuanced now. But what I will say though is that it's not only in the tension that you hold in your body. So whether it's like you try to act, more masculine because you're in a bro-y environment, which may be the case for many people. And you don't need to do that if you're a person who does that. It's also your thoughts, right? So how you're talking about yourself, how you're talking about things, the perspectives that you're adopting as opposed to developing for yourself, right? So those are also ways of holding tension. And what I see is a lot of that toxic talk and the toxic worldview that plays out particularly in gay men, for them to feel like they can hang with the boys, and they can survive in that environment. So they fall into this conversation that actually sometimes is to their own detriment for themselves and also the gay community.
Well, yeah, because you're also talking about how within the gay community, like there's the whole I'm attracted to masculine men. I'm not attracted to effeminate men. And so we've adopted a lot of that within our own community. And yes, it's changing. But when I was doing, screw it, I'll talk about it. So when I was doing Jersey Boys, I'm not going to say who said this, but when my partner and I started dating and we were both in the company together and he was playing Frankie twice a week, I was doing it. I was playing Joe Pesci.
Did you have a showmance?
Well, yes, and 19 years later, we're, still together. And I was the homewrecker, by the way. But I was Joe Pesci in the show, and I covered Frankie. And I remember one of the creatives said to us, "Oh, you can't let the powers that be know that this is happening because neither of you will ever get promoted." And this was musical theater. This was doing a Broadway show. This was back in 2007. Yeah. But that's what we were told while we were standing in a gay bar in San Francisco because we were in one of the companies that moved around. It was a wild thing to hear even then. It would be it wasn't acceptable then, but it would be completely unacceptable now. And it blows my mind how much things have changed, but also how much things are kind of going a little backwards right now, or a lot backwards, which is also going to affect a gay leader tension-wise, trying to puff up and appear more masculine, especially depending on where you live in the world, but especially in this country, whether it's a blue state, a red state, a blue city, a red city, how much it's accepted or not. It's terrifying, and that adds that whole other layer.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it is important for us to remember that we live in coastal cities, and that it had never really stopped being hard for people who live in between those cities. And now it's even worse in those cities and towns and, counties. And we are reverting backwards. And that's a lot of the toxic conversation that's happening and that I'm seeing. Kind of going to the point before that even in progressive or allegedly progressive cities and work environments, you now don't exactly know, is my colleague homophobic or are they a supporter of an ideology that is wants me to die? And do they understand that they actually are part of that ideology, or do they have a cognitive dissonance where they've somehow rationalized, I like Steven, he's cool, I know he's gay, but I'm still gonna like vote against him, or I'm still going to use language that is derogatory about who he is behind his back. But it's all good. He's cool. He's good, right? There's a lot of that happening in families,
Uh-huh.
right? A lot of family rupture happening, a lot of teams. People are leaving companies because they don't align with the leader's values. It could be because the leader is super progressive. It could be because the leader is on the other side of the aisle, right? So there's a lot of recalibration that's happening, which also creates a culture of fear.